Hello everyone. Hi, this is Alokojha. Welcome to StudyIQ IAS English. Finally, the UPSC's answer key is out. The post-mortem of the GS paper 1 and GS paper 2, precisely relating to prelims, is also done. Now, today we are going to understand about what kind of a strategic changes are now required in our preparation. Now, before I begin this short video, let me tell you one important thing, and that is, I'm not going to guarantee you one thing that we have decoded the strategy for UPSC. But yes, I can also tell you one more important aspect, what lessons that we can learn from UPSC Prelims 2026. So very simple words, here we are going to understand what kind of strategic changes are now required in our preparation. Like for example, initially we used to approach history in a very different manner. Now, what approach is required from history that we have learned from UPSC Prelims 2026? Similarly, we have also learned about the same thing in polity, geography, environment, and the most important one, how to link the current affairs with our static portion. That is our core subjects, history, geography, polity, economy, environment, and so on. So, today's short video of 20 to 25 minutes, we are going to decode all these aspects. Apart from this, we are also going to understand the importance of elimination technique that could be utilized in the preparation of civil services. Like from the elimination technique, we can learn one thing. It is better to chase accuracy than perfection. And in the end, I would be giving you few examples of the PYQs that have cropped up in the examination. And we can also understand how does elimination techniques also work even if we know one or two options. Okay, so in today's short video, we are trying to decode what strategic changes are now required in our preparation. So let's begin with our own subject first, that is history. Now, usually you might have observed the trend in the UPSC examination relating to history, correct? Like precisely speaking, we have seen for the past 5 to 7 years that the number of questions in history had declined. Like initially it was 14 to 15 questions, then it came to 12 questions, 10 questions. Last year there were 9 questions in the UPSC prelims examination. Now out of 9 questions, maximum number of questions are related to modern Indian history. So in general, if we consider, suppose there are 10 to 15 questions in history, precisely from the perspective of prelims examination. Out of 10 to 15 questions, you can get at least 11 questions precisely related to modern Indian history. 2 or 3 questions related to ancient Indian history, 1 related to art and culture, and 1 question precisely related to your medieval Indian history. And that too, these kind of questions were terminology based. But this year, we have observed a comeback in history. Like there were approximately 21 questions in history Prelims 2026. Okay. So out of 21 questions, what can we expect? 60 to 70% of the questions should come from modern Indian history. That is approximately 15 to 16 questions should come from modern Indian history because modern Indian history is quite vast. But this year, there was a paradigm shift in the approach of history. Okay. So there were approximately 15 to 16 questions precisely from ancient Indian history. 1 question from art and culture perspective, that is Moidam. That was a question number 37. That was asked precisely in one of the sets of UPSC. And 4 to 5 questions were just related to modern Indian history. Now from this section of history, what have we learned? Now let's understand about that. Questions covered intricate aspects of temple architecture. Like I'll give you a very simple example. Briefly, we have also discussed about the 21 questions in the previous video, correct? So now there have been a question on temple architecture. Now, every one of us have gone through the different terminologies related to temple architecture. For example, what is Gopuram, Mandapam, Mahamandapam, Antaral? Apart from this, Shikhar, Garbhagriha, Panchayatan style of architecture. Every one of us know about this. But now UPSC is trying to ask about the intricate aspects. Which among the following are Nagara style Shikhar? Which among the following are Dravida style Shikhar or Vesara style Shikhar? So now we have to understand in brief about Nagara style of architecture, Dravida style of architecture, and Vesara style of architecture. It's not just about that the question has been asked on temple architecture this year. There could be a probable question next year on stupa architecture. Now, there are different kinds of stupas: Sharirik stup, Paribhogika stup, and Updeshika stup. Secondly, Harappan trade vectors. Traditionally, what do we learn? Suppose we are learning about the different sites of Indus Valley civilization. Suppose we are learning about the site of Mohenjo-daro. So what do we learn? Mohenjo-daro, it is a site located in precisely which region? It is located in Pakistan on the banks of river Indus. It was discovered in 1922, second Indus Valley civilization site to be discovered. It was discovered by Rakhaldas Banerjee, and the key important findings include such as the bronze image of a nude dancing girl, statite image of a bearded man, multi-pillared assembly hall, then seal of Pashupati Mahadev or Proto-Shiva, and standardized system of weights and measures. These are the key findings from Mohenjo-daro. Now, in 2025, there was a question asked precisely related to Indus Valley civilization that the bronze image of a nude dancing girl have been found from which site? Okay, answer was Mohenjo-daro. This year, now they are expecting a kind of a correlation or the interpretation of the findings. For example, in Harappan towns, the people were aware about the scientific knowledge, or people had scientific knowledge and technical aspects. How do we come to know about this? Because standardized system of weights and measures have been found from the Harappan towns. Copper scale have been observed at the site of Harappa. So what these kind of findings exemplify or exhibit? Yes, to an extent, people might have the knowledge of mathematics. To an extent, people might be aware about the scientific knowledge, or people might be possessing scientific knowledge. So here we have to infer from the findings. So there is a change in Harappan trade vectors. Rig Vedic social terminologies. Terminologies have been asked. There are three questions wherein you can observe the terminologies related to the Rig Veda. First question was, or Rig Vedic civilization, this chapter. The first terminology was Kshetrapatni. It finds mention in. Second important aspect that have been asked by UPSC was, as a part of statement wise, there were two terminologies if you have observed the paper quite keenly. One terminology was Parshu, that means axe. Second one was Srini, that means sickle. Third, the Vedic names of the rivers have been asked, such as Byas, Ravi, that is Parushini, then Jhelum, then different rivers have been asked, Vedic names. So here we can infer one thing, we have to focus on the terminologies as well. Okay, it's not just about Rig Vedic terminologies. It's also about the terminologies related to the Sangam age, terminologies related to the Gupta age, and so on. Finally, historical geography of the ancient Tamilakam region. Historical geography in the perspective of what? There was a question about Robert Bruce's foot. There was a question related to the change in the shift or change in the course of the rivers. There was a question about the findings of Ganga dolphins and the dolphins in different other regions. So here we have to co-link the history to the geography at that time. Correct? Let me give you a very simple example. We usually study that in mains while studying the Mahajanpads. And what is that? Like there were 16 Mahajanpad. Now, why was Magad Mahajanpad so successful? So what were the geographical factors behind that? So here we have to try to correlate the history to the geography as well as there should be a proper focus on inscriptions. Now, I'll give you a very simple example about the lessons that we have learned. First thing, how the commission now expects you to engage. First of all, engage history like an academic researcher. Secondly, look at the structural evolution of the Indian society. Understand interconnection of ideas, institution, economy, culture, and geography. Not just treat it as a superficial sequence of dates and events. Let me give you a very simple example. Like Palwas and Chalukyas. You might have studied about them. Okay. Now, there was a Chalukyan ruler, Pulakesin II, who had defeated Harshvardhan, and this has been recorded in Aiyol inscription. So, where do we come to know about this from? Aiyol inscription. Secondly, the same Pulakesin II, one of the greatest ruler of Chalukyan dynasty, had also defeated Mahendravarman, the ruler of Pallavas. Okay, this also is recorded in Aiyol inscription. On the other hand, there was another important ruler of Pallavas whose name was Narsimhavarman, who is also referred as Mammalla. Mammalla means the great wrestler, and he had established a new town which was referred as Mamlapuram, also referred as Mahabalipuram. So, Narsimhavarman had defeated whom? He he had defeated Pulakesi too. So this has been recorded in which inscription? So very simple words. Now you have to correlate your facts and concepts to certain evidences. So think like a researcher. As we have seen that specifically Samudragupta is referred as Napoleon of India by Vincent Smith. And the expeditions or the expansionist approach or the policies that were being followed by Samudragupta has been recorded in Allahabad pillar inscription. Correct? So precisely speaking, Samudragupta, he had defeated many rulers to the south of Patliputra. So this has been recorded in which inscription? Allahabad pillar inscription. So think like a researcher, try to correlate things. Even if you do not know the answer, you can correlate. Apart from this, specifically, you can derive the answer with the help of elimination technique that we'll understand in the later part of the video. Okay. Finally, specifically, the biggest message is history is not about what happened when, but also how Indian civilization evolved over time. So this is the key important message from the section of history. Now let's talk about polity. Now, why the standard polity strategy completely crashed? First thing, usually what happens, the old polity focus and the 2026 polity focus was what? Initially, the aspirants used to go for the rote memorization of articles, rote memorizations of the schedules, amendments, and so on. Now there have been a systemic accountability, ethical governance, situational judgment, conceptual understanding. So for example, if you have studied about the article related to directive principles of state policy, or for that sake, fundamental rights. Now they are going to correlate it. So precisely here, the philosophy that has been derived from fundamental rights has been tested for the aspirants. Initially, what used to happen? Students used to read a standard text for Indian polity, that is M. Lakshmikant, supplemented by P.M. Bakshi or sometimes D.D. Basu. So I'm not saying that precisely do not follow M. Lakshmikant. It is the core book. It is one of the most important book for polity. But apart from this, also read the basics. For example, you need to understand the core philosophy behind directive principles of state policy. Core philosophy. Now, why directive principles of state policy is referred as positive obligations and fundamental rights as negative obligations? So, precisely speaking, you have to understand the core philosophy behind all these important aspects. Is that clear? So, read the NCRT. Apart from that, also read M. Lakshmikant. Also try to understand the basic interpretation of these things from which thing? P.M. Bakshi and D.D. Basu. And the most important, like there's one important book which is referred as Important Judgments That Changed India by Alex Andrew George. So what are the interpretations of these judgments? What are the philosophy behind that? We have to approach polity in this manner now. So precisely speaking, it effectively, the prelims 2026, it effectively dismantled that safety net that we have to just memorize the important articles, important amendments, important schedules, Panchayati Raj, important commissions, and so on. Secondly, straightforward factual questions on institutional frameworks were remarkably scarce. Simple words, these kind of questions have declined in this year prelims 2026. Old predictable pattern no longer the word. Now, what are they expecting us? Now, UPSC is expecting us to go for thinking, application, and ethical reasoning. So, I'll give you a very simple example related to polity. These, like, for example, suppose if you're reading a newspaper, The Hindu or Indian Express, and suppose if you're reading any particular judgment given by any particular High Court or Honorable Supreme Court of India. So, just below that article, there is also the interpretation of a particular article related to the judgments and so on. Okay, different writs of the Supreme Court and High Courts, everything has been mentioned in that article. So try to dive deep inside to that, so that you will try to develop an analytical understanding of the questions related to polity. Apart from this, also focus on governance and social justice aspect. Like ethical governance and social justice precisely are the part of GS paper 2. But here you have to study your polity, governance, and social justice in conjunction. This is one of the key takeaways or key messages from Prelims 2026 related to polity section. Moving ahead, Unexpected intrusion of ethics in GS paper 1. Ethics, it's a paper of it's a GS paper 4 of mains examination, 250 marks. Okay, but this year there were 2 questions precisely in the prelims examination related to ethics. So it was a completely unexpected entry. So it was a kind of a shockwave for the students, because students or the aspirants were not prepared for this. And UPSC, they had a paradigm shift now. So specifically, what was traditionally tested previously? Now, previously they used to test the integrity, the emotional intelligence, the analytical abilities of the aspirants. Now, specifically, the firewall was broken. Candidates faced complex administrative scenarios. They had to choose the most accountable, transparent, and legally sound course of action. So it's not just about that specifically you have to study ethics for your mains examination. It simply exemplifies one thing. Suppose if you are aspiring for 2027, okay, it's my personal opinion in that case, and what I have observed precisely going through the paper of prelims 2026, that suppose if you are aspiring for 2027, now your examination would be in May 2027. So in my personal opinion, by February 2027, your optional should be completed. Apart from this, your mains reading should be completed at least once, so that you will have an in general overview of everything. Like we know one thing, that ethics forms a very important or a pivotal part of your mains examination, that is GS paper 4. But did anyone expect a single question on ethics in prelims examination? But there was a paradigm shift in the approach of UPSC, and there were 2 questions on ethics. So before you sit for the examination, at least one reading of your mains paper should be completed thoroughly. Your optional should be completed. So, so that you can have an in general overview or in general understanding of the core concepts. Clear? Then comes the part of your current affairs. Now, how integration was tested this year? Like for example, current affairs, we treat it as a different part. But UPSC through its paper has shown this year that you have to correlate the current affairs to your static portion. For example, there was a question precisely related to art and culture, Moidam. Okay, so these are the burial mounds. Now, Moidam, they were in news last year. So precisely there was a question on this. So that question has the question, since it was in news, it is a part of current affairs, and it was correlated to art and culture of history. Similarly, by observing the questions that have been asked in the UPSC prelims examination related to current affairs, we have understood one thing. Current affairs should not be treated as a separate section, but it should be treated as a part of integrated section. Suppose if you're studying geography, okay? Suppose if you're studying fundamentals of physical geography, you have studied world geography. Now, if you're reading a newspaper, and suppose if you're reading anything about Mediterranean Sea, just go and observe which are the countries surrounding Mediterranean Sea. Why was South China Sea so important? What are the important resources in South China Sea? Why China is claiming the control or command over South China Sea? What are the important islands in South China Sea, countries surrounding South China Sea? So whenever you are studying, try to correlate those aspects. Suppose if you're studying any of the environmental summit, okay? So there are certain crux and there are certain articles as a part of that environmental summit. So go through the terminologies, try to correlate that with the static concepts of the ecology and environment. Same applies to history, same applies to economy section. So here try to integrate your preparation. How? Suppose schemes, reports, indices related concepts were being asked. Events, summits, agreements, background and provisions related concepts have been asked. Then technology and initiatives, principles, policies and impact, geography, environmental events, physical and ecological foundations. So try to integrate in that manner. Okay. So specifically, what is a message for the aspirants? Read beyond the headlines. I'll give you a very simple example related to history. Like, although this question has not been asked this year, but how do we approach it? Like last year, there is a place which is referred as Palitana. It was in news. Palitana it has been declared as 100% vegetarian city of or 100% vegetarian town of India because it is quite important from the perspective of Jainism. Now you have read that. Now try to go for a bit research in that. Now how is it important from the perspective of Jainism? Palitana, it's a group of temples located on a hills which is referred as Shatrunjaya Hills in Gujarat. Now out of 24 Tirthankars, 23 Tirthankars have visited this place and sanctified this place except one Tirthankar. So one Tirthankar who did not visit the Palitana was whom? It was Neminath, the 22nd Tirthankar, whose symbol was conch shell. So go beyond the headlines and try to do a bit of research on that. I'm not saying that go in lot of depth, but do a bit of research in that. Second important example, like last year, there was another important aspect, Ambubachi Mela. Ambubachi Mela, it is celebrated in the region of Guwahati. It is also referred as Mahakumbh of the East. And it is like Ambubachi Mela is held in the region of or in the temple of Kamakhya Devi that is located in specifically Assam. So precisely speaking, try to correlate your art and culture or history or any subject that you are going through with the help of current affairs. Link every current development to the relevant static concepts. Clear? Suppose if any stupa is there in the news, study about stupa architecture. Like there was a previously question asked about Chaunsat Yogini temple. Okay? And Chaunsat Yogini temple that was also asked in one of the PYQs of UPSC. So try to study about the temple architecture. What was the architecture of Chaunsat Yogini temple? Because there was a statement, there were 4 statements related to Chaunsat Yogini temple of Morena. Morena, it is located in Chambal region of Madhya Pradesh. And precisely speaking, the question, one of the statement was like the structure of the Chaunsat Yog or the structure of the new parliament, or sorry, the old parliament exhibits the same structure of Chaunsat Yogini temple. So you have to correlate the different aspect. Apart from this, build strong interlinking notes, events, issues, concepts, and impact. Suppose if you have studied about any personality in the news related to history, suppose if you have studied about Vallabhbhai Patel ji, or suppose if you have studied about Pandita Ramabai, she was the founder of Arya Mahila Samaj. So also study about Arya Mahila Samaj, Arya Samaj. Like socio-religious readers usually are there in news. Okay? Like Jyotiba Phule ji was in news and the questions have been asked on the different works of Jyotiba Phule. For example, Gulamgiri, it's a work of. Sarvajanik Satya Dharma Pustak, it's a work of. So try to correlate or make the notes, connect events, issues, concepts, and impact. Use government sources such as PIB, Prasar Bharati, Rajya Sabha TV. Then apart from this, also compulsorily go through magazines such as Yojna and Kurukshetra. And if possible, you can also go through Economic Survey Volume 1 and 2. And secondly, please do not ignore the budget. Although it might be boring, although it might be monotonous, but please go through the important terminologies associated with the budget. Okay. And the last thing that is meant for the aspirant is combine current affairs with the static knowledge. And I have given you example how to combine the current affairs with your static knowledge. Now, so the big message, the UPSC expects you to think like an analyst who connects the dots. Is that clear? Elimination technique. Now, before I explain about elimination technique, I'll give you 3 to 4 important examples. And with the help of these examples related to the question of history, we can understand one important aspect, that please do not try to chase perfection in your paper. Try to chase accuracy. How? Let's explore with the help of a question. Which among the following are the plays or dramas associated with Kalidas? Okay. Now, it is asked about Kalidas. Is that clear? We have studied about one important person whose name is Bhasa. Bhasa has written different books. One such book is Swapnavasav Dutt. Okay. We just know about this, that Bhasa has written Swapnavasav Dutt. We do not know about if Kalidas has written Abhigyana Shakuntalam. For example, everyone knows that Kalidas has written Abhigyana Shakuntalam. Majority of them know Kalidas, who are preparing for civil services, they know that Kalidas has written Malvika Agnimitram. Okay, and we know one thing, that Swapnavasavdat was written by Bhasa, but we do not know Vikramavashyam was written or not. So we know one thing, since Swapnavasavdat was written by Bhasa, option 4 won't be there. And since option 4 won't be there, this option gets eliminated, this options get eliminated, this options get eliminated. Automatically, even if you do not know whether Vikramavashyam was written by Kalidas or not, this becomes the answer because the rest of the 3 are eliminated. Let's go with the second question. Match the following Neolithic sites: Kiari, Odisha, Kiari, Golbai Sasan, Burzahom, Napchik, Odisha, Kashmir, Ladakh, and Manipur. Suppose you know that specifically you know just 2 sites. For example, the 2 sites are very important. Everyone knows about one of the important sites because it is mentioned in NCERT, it is mentioned in Tamil Nadu State Board book. That is Burzahom. And Burzahom, it is located in Kashmir. So where do you find C as an like C2 as an answer? These 2 options. So automatically these 2 options get eliminated. Suppose you just know one of the sites, that is Napchik, which is located in Manipur. D4. Okay. So D4. This becomes your answer, even if you do not know about the rest of the things. Second example of how elimination technique works. So from here we can understand specifically we have to chase accuracy more than perfection. I'll give you 2 more examples. Arrange the following peasant movements. This is peasant movement in chronological order. Deccan Riots, Indigo Agitation of Bengal, Kheda Satyagraha, Champaran Satyagraha. Suppose you know this, all of them are peasant movements. You do not know the exact dates when the peasant movements were held. But you know one important fact, that Champaran Satyagraha was the first important Satyagraha of M.K. Gandhi in India. Okay, listen to me patiently. You know important fact, like M.K. Gandhi came to India back in 1915. And his political guru was Gopal Krishna Gokhaleji. Gopal Krishna Gokhaleji suggested M.K. Gandhi that before entering into the mainstream Indian politics, first of all, tour the entire India. And after that, enter into the mainstream Indian politics. At that time, in Lucknow session of 1916, M.K. Gandhi had met Rajkumar Shukla, who had invited M.K. Gandhi to Champaran. So Champaran Satyagraha was the first important Satyagraha of M.K. Gandhi. M.K. Gandhi also later on participated in Kheda Satyagraha. That was specifically headed by, or the leadership base was being provided by Vallabhbhai Patelji. He also participated in Bardoli Satyagraha. Again, the leadership base was provided by whom? Vallabhbhai Patelji. So very simple words. Kheda Satyagraha is after Champaran Satyagraha because Champaran Satyagraha is considered as the, what? It is considered as precisely the first Satyagraha of M.K. Gandhi in India. So option 4 should be specifically first and option 3 should be later. So here 3 is first and 4 is later on. This becomes wrong. Specifically, if you speak about this, okay, 4 and 3, these 2 options are left. Okay, this is also eliminated. Now, you have known one of the options. Second major thing, you know that specifically the first peasant movement immediately after revolt of 1857 was Indigo Agitation of Bengal. Okay, immediately after 1857. Okay, you just know that Champaran Satyagraha was the first Satyagraha of M.K. Gandhi. Okay, you do not know the exact date. And you know that Indigo Agitation of Bengal was the first of the event among all of them. Your answer is 2. So you can start, like, even if you do not know the other options, you have derived the answer. 2, 1, 4, 3. So try to go with the elimination technique. It will help you a lot. Like, we did not know the exact date of Deccan Riots. We did not know the exact date of Kheda Satyagraha. But we knew one thing, that Kheda Satyagraha was after Champaran Satyagraha. So option 3 would be after 4. The first one is Indigo. So obviously we have derived the answer 2, 1, 4, 3. Last question. With reference to ancient India, Gautam Buddha was generally known by which of the following epithets? Nayaput, Sakyamuni, Tathagat. We don't know. But we only know one thing, that yes, Buddha, he belonged to Sakya clan. Specifically speaking, Buddha's father name was Shuddhodhan. He was ruling from the region of Kapilavastu. And he was the chief of Sakya clan. Hence, Buddha is also referred as Sakyamuni. We do not know he was referred as Naiput, or we do not know that he was referred as Tathagat. Although he was referred as Tathagat, but we do not know that. But we know that since his father belonged to Sakya clan, he was referred as Sakyamuni. So this option is correct. So if this option is correct, what will happen? This option gets eliminated. Option 1 gets eliminated. This option also gets, no. Okay, option 1 gets eliminated, only one. None of the above gets eliminated. Okay. Now, precisely speaking, 2 options are left. Now here, the probability for getting the correct answer again is 50-50%. Okay. Like for example, 1, 2, 3 and 2 and 3 are the options that are given. Now, specifically speaking, just dive on to Jainism now. Now, if we go on to Jainism, okay, we just know one thing, that specifically that Vardhaman Mahavir, who was a 24th Tirthankar, his father's name was Siddharth. And since his father's name was Siddharth, his father, he belonged to Natrik clan. Okay, which was a part of Vajji. We just know this. Okay, so we can correlate from there. Since Vardhaman Mahavir ji was a chief of the head of the Natrik clan, so probably, what happens? Probably, he might be called as Nathputra. Nathputra means his father was a chief of Natrik clan. Okay, so Naiput, it is related to Jainism. So this options get eliminated. We do not know Tathagat, but what option is left? 2 and 3. So answer becomes 2 and 3. So my friends, the crux of this questions that I have shown you on the board is elimination techniques works a lot in the examination. So these are the key takeaways from this short video. As I've told you right from the start itself, I have not said that we have decoded the complete strategy for UPSC. I repeat, I have not said that we have decoded the complete strategy for UPSC. But I have said one thing, yes, we can change our strategy, we can change our approach for the preparation. And this is how we go in that manner. Okay. My friends, StudyIQ GS Foundation P2I batches for 2027 and 2028. The batches have started and the admissions on the batches are going to close on 31st of May. Now, specifically, what is the approach that is being followed by StudyIQ? Now, the approach is based on SMART model. Now, what is SMART model all about? First of all, structured classes. First of all, specifically, the batches are available in English, Hinglish, and Hindi medium. Now, there's a complete separate batch for English medium. Precisely speaking, all the subjects would be taught to you completely in English. History, geography, polity, economy, science and tech, current affairs, ethics, internal security, international relations and organization, everything. So, first of all, there's a complete separate batch for English medium. Secondly, we will initiate our preparation with the basics. Then we will move to the foundation phase. So whatever you have learned in the basics, like we will add on to your knowledge, that is nothing but the foundation phase. Then comes the advanced stage where we will try to go for analytical understanding of the concept in quite depth and detail. Like for example, as a part of basics and foundation, we have understood about the Battle of Buxar and Battle of Plassey. Now, what was the impact of Battle of Buxar and Battle of Plassey? Okay. How these kind of battles, like it is said that just between a span of 7 to 8 years, there was approximately 4.94 million pounds was drained out of India. So we'll try to go for analytical understanding in the advanced classes. Then there would be classes for the mains and so on. So that is a proper structured classes and a proper timetable would be provided to the aspirants. Then comes mentorship. Like the preparation of civil services does not go in a linear fashion. It goes like crest and trough. Correct? Sometimes we feel like studying. Sometimes we struggle with making the timetable. Sometimes we are not consistent in our studies. And consistency is the key. So here there would be a mentor who would be guiding you throughout your journey for civil services preparation. It's not just about related to study. Sometimes we feel emotionally broken down. So here also, what happens? A mentor would be guiding you to revamp back to your studies. Then comes assessment, and the assessment can only be done through the test. So there would be a regular test that would be conducted. Proper revision. Revision is the key. I usually keep on suggesting the students not only on YT, that is YouTube, but also on the paid classes, that It is better to read one book 10 times rather than reading 10 books. So revision becomes the key. And finally, the test would be there. The batches are available for morning and it's an English batch. The admissions of the batches are going to close on 31st of May 2026 and the prices are starting at 11,999. So use the code Alok Live that is flashing on your screen to get the benefits of these batches. I repeat the code Alok Live. Hope this short video might have helped you. My friends, with this, I'll stop my words for the day. Thank you and have a very nice day. Bye-bye, everyone. Jai Hind.